evening, Africa, and welcome to another edition of A Closer Perspective, brought to you by Thando channel and hosted by yours truly, Sapi. Tonight, I am joined by an amazing couple, Rita and Waddi Sansole, who are a Zimbabwean couple that have been married for 8.5 years. They reside in Harare and have 4 children. As adoption advocates, they share their personal journey to create more awareness around the topic of adoption. Rita and Waddi, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Thanks for having us.
Such a pleasure to have you. So I'm sure you can tell from just my introduction of Rita and Waddi that today we're going to be discussing all the aspects and deep diving into the process of adoption, specifically in Zimbabwe. I did a little bit of reading around after our meeting, just in preparation for our conversation tonight, and I found this article that I thought was quite interesting. It was written by Miriam Tose Manjome as a guest columnist in the Newsday publication, and it was published on the 15th of August 2020. She writes, Zimbabweans have adopted children since time immemorial, but this has tended to be very informal and within communities and families. Formal and legal adoption is less common, but more and more people are increasingly taking it as the pathway to parenthood. It's not an easy process, and it is not meant to be. The patience, determination, and perseverance required to the end serve as a testament to the seriousness and the sincerity of the adoptive parents. So I found this paragraph very true, because after the meeting that we had, just preparing for our conversation tonight, one of the things that was a key takeout for me was that certainly this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and that you need to ensure that your emotional tank is full, that your mental strength is in place as you start this journey, because just from you sharing your journey with me, it really seemed that it's very, very trying. So Rita, I wanted to start with you. Can you tell us how you came to reach the decision to adopt? Because unlike most couples, where logic dictates and certainly experience that adoption is the last resort. After everyone has gone through all the various ways of becoming parents, this is the last recourse. For you guys, it was the other way around. Please, can you share with us how this journey started for you?
All right. You are right in saying that adoption is a journey. So if you do ask us how it's going, we'll say it's going because it's still going. And, so how our journey began, I think I'll start by saying for us, we define adoption by calling it an act of love. I know it has many, many definitions, when one mom carries a child for you and all that, all the scientific explanations. But for us, it really was just an act of love. This is because we were fresh into our marriage. We had never once spoken about adoption, never once spoken about fostering or anything around that topic. We had actually planned to have children 2 years into our marriage after doing studies and settling in and all that. And then we came across an opportunity through a church that we were affiliated to, and they have a home, sort of a place of safety. A place of safety is a place where kids stay while they're still waiting for a forever home, while they're looking for families to stay forever. So this place during the Christmas holiday would find families that would take in a child just for the Christmas period so that a child can have the Christmas feel within a family setup. This is because, we believe children belong in families, not in institutions. And so for special days like that, while it is good for people to give them food on the day and clothes and go back to their houses and make it special, that's still good. It would be nicer if they also experience what it's like to be in a loving setup, well, in a family setup. So that's the reason for this, and also to give the workers rest so that they don't burn out. So when we came across the opportunity, he asked about it first, and then I said to him, would you want to take a child are you interested in this? And then he said, oh, but what are we even going to do with the whole child at this time? We haven't planned it. And nah, maybe not. And then, well, we didn't then talk about it much after that. Then about a week later, he comes back and says, I've had a change of heart. So let's go take in a child. And then we see how it goes, but it shouldn't be a baby because that'll be difficult for us. So we
We're not
got
ready to be babies.
no. So when we got there, um, when it was time to get the baby, so I'll just say that when you're getting a child, whether it's for fostering or for adoption, it's not like shopping. It's not baby shopping. They're not sitting on a shelf in a cradle waiting to be picked and you choose, I want this one, I want that one. No. So they just asked us to say, okay, what were you looking at? And then we had initially said, okay, so a girl who's a bit older, but all of them had been taken. So they just gave us the options that there's a 1-year-old boy and a 2-month-old baby. Which one would you like to take? Not even like we looked at them and chose. No, we then just said, okay, you can give us the 1-year-old boy because it was closer to what we thought we could handle, because this is a very sensitive and delicate thing to do. You can't just take on something that you know is too much for you to handle. So that's what we thought we could handle. So you find even when people ask, should I adopt a baby? Should I adopt an older child? We'll always say, take what you handle and what you feel you know is will match your capacity. And like you said earlier
Absolutely.
on, your emotional capacity, because it really isn't for the faint-hearted. It has to be something that's within what you can do, your capabilities. And so we took a boy, a 1-year-old boy, and then had him over the holidays. Absolutely enjoyed his presence in the home. Our lives were changed, I must say. And now when the time came for him to go back, I promise you, we were a mess. We both knew what we wanted to say to each other, but I wasn't going to start this conversation because I had started, in the first place. I wasn't going to push, and I also respect the things to do with he's the guy, so it's his name, and so obviously I didn't want to start that. And sometimes we catch each other crying in corners and just not say anything, and then one day he just comes and says, "You know what? I can't take this child back. If you don't mind, can we keep this baby?" And obviously, for me, that was like, of course, yes. So
So
we
can I
set
dial
up.
back, Rita? Can
Mhm.
I just dial back to initially, you said when you kind of brought it up as a fostering opportunity, uh, and you took it to Waddi, his first response was, what are we going to do with a child? So what was going through your mind when she first just brought up the fostering opportunity, and 2 weeks later you said he then came around and said, okay, let's go for it. So what, she planted a seed, but what were the internal conversations you were having?
I think it was largely to do with the question of timing. At that point in time, I hadn't even processed having a child in the house, having a baby in the house. It was really all about us, and I wanted us to maximize on that time. And also during that same period in time, I was also going through. I was actually in school as well, furthering my education as well. So I kind of felt I don't think we have the time for all this, because, like I said, it was a matter of timing, and I guess also when she brought forward the conversation at that particular time, I didn't really have a clear head. So my immediate response was to say, yeah, look, maybe not now, and I guess I just needed a bit more time to kind of process what she was talking about and make a rush decision. And then also within the thought process was now the whole, you quickly move from 0 to 100, where you're thinking of worst case scenario. Okay, we bring a baby. What if the baby dies? What do we now do? How do we even handle it? Are we legally protected? What does the system say? What do the laws say? So already there's now all this rationale going on through my head. But at the same time, I mean, like I said, I was just moving from 0 to 100 and panicking. I guess that's my form of panic.
Pragmatic.
Yeah.
Like all men are, step one, step two, step three. What are the practicalities of
Yeah.
this? Right.
Yeah. But otherwise, I think after having gone through and just I guess thought about it, was in a bit of a better headspace. and I knew it was a bit of it's kind of stepping outside of a comfort zone, and took the opportunity and then just said, okay, sure, let's give it a try. And at that time, it was just trial and error, and my condition was it's just trial and error. No commitment, no attachments. Let's just offer this service, and once it's done, when the time is up, we take the child back, and then that's it. So that's how I then came around to the whole thing, set the conditions, and even the type of baby, the age, and things like that. Very specific, trying to minimize my my risk factors and all the things that I was afraid of. Yeah.
Were there certain, as a fostering home or as foster parents, what was the period of time that you were required to foster the child, and did the home kind of give you guidelines? I mean, obviously Waddi had set his own in terms of we don't want a baby that's too young because it's our first, and all the practicalities he's just mentioned. But did anything come from the home itself in terms of guidelines, maybe even as a safeguard to some of his concerns that he had?
Yes, they were very supportive and just sort of walked us through what we needed to do and linked us up with the social worker who came and did the home inspection at home, and just was reminding us what this would entail, what is needed and required from that. And then they gave us some clothes for the baby and offered support 24/7. We're checking in. So how's it going? What do you need? And stuff like that.
Wow. Is this the welfare or the home that was checking in regularly?
The home guys.
Wow. And they kind of gave you, did I hear you say that they gave you clothes and something to kind of start you off in the process?
Yes, they did.
Wow, that's amazing. So once you'd made up your minds, you guys, the time had come to give him back, and you had clearly fallen in love, and you made the decision that we can't take him back. What were the first 3 steps that you took when you made the decision that we want to keep him?
Okay. From my memory, the first thing we did was we told our family that, okay, so we want to keep this child because we believe you need to take them along with you, regardless of how they respond. Just, awarding them that respect, know what you've planned and what you're doing. So we told our family, and then we told the guys from the home, asking obviously to say, okay, so this is what we've thought, this is what we feel, what should we do? Is it okay? Because we know that some of the kids were already in line for adoption. So first checked that, and then after that we spoke to the social worker when we had already taken our position, and then they walked us through it, how we get a foster order, the legal document that allows you to keep a child for 3 years legally, and while deciding if you want to adopt or not.
Okay,
yeah. Those are the main.
That's what
main steps.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
what's the order? Then what protects you in case anything does actually happen?
Yeah.
You are then protected by the law through that foster order.
Yeah.
Oh, so the foster order, what is the process of hiring the foster order? Is it through this? Because you obviously assigned a caseworker, you had your social welfare worker who was assigned to your case. What is that actual process of getting the foster order? Is it something that I could do? Any layperson can process.
Okay. Okay, sorry. We apologize for our dog, right? Can you hear?
Oh, now I'm like, okay, that's what it is.
All right.
Let me just.
I'll just explain while he just quietens the dog. So the foster order. So before getting the child in the first place, we needed to do a police clearance. We weren't just going to be given this child. So we did a police clearance and the home visit from the social worker, like I said. So the foster order now is where you get, they give you the forms. The social worker gives you a form from the social welfare. Then you get references, family member, a pastor, a friend, and I think medical records as well. You get these references done, and then when you fill them out, you send them back to them, and then you go and apply. You get a court You go through court as well, hey, for the document. And then you get the foster order after some time. It comes through.
Okay.
The social worker is the one who's hands-on with that and will be walking with you with that.
So before the foster order comes through, did you still have him with you in your care, or?
Yes, we still had him with us, but in a normal situation, you only get the child after processing all these other papers. But we already had him, and so they just thought, okay, you can keep him while you're processing these papers. And they encourage us to do the foster order first, because they say some people might rush into saying, okay, we want to adopt this child, and then change their mind a few years down the line. And a lot of other people have done that, because when the feelings wear out, and then they change their mind. Yeah, and they change their mind and they take this child back, and that's devastating to the child, obviously. So the social workers want to make sure that after the 3 years, you really are sure, that you want to keep this child, because it's a commitment, it's permanent, and there's no going back after that.
Right. You say that the process is quite long before you get the foster order, and there's a lot of background checks that are done. What is part of the process of the background checks? I recall when we spoke, you said one of the things they do is for the child that you want to foster, that you want to adopt formally, they also are very thorough in the checking of the background of that child and relatives. Maybe you can just walk us through that process as well.
Okay, so now that thorough bit normally comes when you want to adopt the child, because now that's
the foster process.
Yeah, no, not that I know of. Because fostering, sometimes some parents have actually come forward and said, I'm going through a hard time right now. Could you please keep this child for me for in the interim? So it's a temporary thing, the foster thing. It's a temporary thing. I stand to be corrected, but it's the adoption bit where now they will look for existing relatives of the child. They will search throughout for existing relatives, because adoption is a last resort, actually.
Okay, so they encourage fostering. And how long can you foster? So you said 3 years, if I'm correct, in terms of, so that each is 3 years. Then what happens after those 3 years?
So after those 3 years, if that child is unadoptable, when we say unadoptable, we mean if they have relatives that are alive somewhere, even though they can't take care of this child, then that child is unadoptable. So you just need to renew that foster order. But if that child is adoptable, then you can pursue to get the adoption. For some, it has worked from the onset, where they just apply for adoption and it works out without getting the foster order. And so it works differently. It's situational, really, because every child has a different background. So depending on the social worker, depending on the child's background and the willingness of the couple that wants to do this, that's what determines how long it takes and what's needed.
Okay. So how many times is the foster order renewable?
I think I guess it's continuous. For as long as it can be, until the child is probably old enough to start making their own decisions. I guess in our country, that's now around about the age of about 18. Going forward. That's where then after that the child can then make a decision. But otherwise, they advise and recommend. Initially, they will advise and recommend this 3-year foster order. Then during that 3-year period, either the full adoption will go through. If it doesn't go through, they renew for another 3 years until you finally get, in the event that there is a go ahead for the adoption of that child. Until the adoption has gone through, they'll just keep renewing it, because what social welfare says is that foster order is, for them, they say it's good enough. It can, it secures you, it secures the child with you, and it protects you in the legal framework of the act itself, of the child, of the what they call the Child or Children's Act. So that's their kind of the steps in the procedure. And as Rita mentioned, adoption is it's the last resort, because they opt more for reunification. of, uh, of these children with living relatives.
Mm.
That's the first option of the state.
Yes, for them is to reunite that child with family, whatever form or whatever level of family it is, whether it's a biological parent that's alive, or a grandmother, or an aunt, or anyone who has a connection to the biological parent of the child, or either of the biological parents of the child. They will opt to, I mean, they will pursue that angle first before they then say, okay, now it's time for adoption.
Okay. So your own journey with this. So you've gone through the process of the fostering order. Can you just what was your then experience in that as you moved along the adoption process?
Okay, so after we, excuse me, after we got the fostering order, we had to wait and had to push quite a bit with the social workers.
How
So,
long did you have to wait? Sorry to cut you off, Rita. How long did you have to wait?
so our adoption papers only came out after 4 years.
Wow.
A whole 4 years of pushing and praying and waiting. um, yeah, that was a lot. I mean, it really was a lot because the social workers get overwhelmed.
Right.
The same social worker that's dealing with your adoption case is the one that's dealing with abandoned kids, is the one dealing with street kids, kids in prison, kids being abused, anything to do with children, all lie on that same social worker. And
Right.
constantly getting interns. So I think they're understaffed, overwhelmed. And so adoption, like last report, not really something that is urgent, especially because we had him. So
Right.
have this child, so he's safe. I've got a kid right now who's desperate, who's like hanging on red tape. I need to like push this, and then things like that where we had to go through, and they were being thorough, looking for relatives, and just wanting to make sure that that they were making the right decision in all of this. So 4 years, which when we look at, I just say it was my 4-year labor.
Absolutely. Because I'm sure in there you're wondering, are they going to find somebody? Are they going to find a situation to say he's not adoptable? And am I going to lose this person that who's now mine?
You
For
can
only
imagine.
this.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine the anxiety? Because they do say you've got to be prepared. I might find the birth mom. I might find this. I might find that. And that's it was really a lot for me to process because now this child is mine. Like you can't tell me about. So it's like So I had to go through a lot, and I would say honestly, it grew me.
Mm-hmm.
Really did grow me. Where you get to like see a lot and understand situations that people go through when you start thinking, so when certain women do something like this, what had she gone through, what was wrong, what was going on with this, and stuff like that, where now when you think about it, it's like even if I'm to find some relatives, it's actually like, okay, it won't be like an angry, bitter, like afraid position. It'll actually be like a warm embrace. It feels like that, I think, because of that whole period, what it the things that happened in my mind and how it grew me, how it changed my mindset and stuff like that. I won't wish that on anyone. I don't know if anyone has strength to go through stuff like that because it's not cool. But the comfort we had was that we had the child, and the comfort in knowing that we did the right thing, because we also then prayed about it afterwards. And then so it didn't make sense to me that God would let us do something like this only to then rip my heart up.
Absolutely.
I don't think like that. You know what I mean? So that's
No.
why I'm in peace. That okay, you know what? Good. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
said the first step, though, was you told your families because you feel it's important, and rightfully so, to walk them through. Now, our culture is not open to adoption because, like we read in Miriam's article, that there's family and there's community. So why don't you adopt? Why don't you take? Why do you have to go through this whole process? There's so and so who's struggling. Why don't you take that child? What was the response of your extended family when you shared your decision?
Okay, so on my side, my family goes to the same church where these children were coming from in the first place. So it was an automatic embraced. And then my other family as well. Yeah, they just loved it. And then some also got encouraged to do it as well.
Wonderful. That's great. So you didn't have to deal with family drama.
Yeah.
As
No,
he was
no,
concerned.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think on my side, it was the support was already there from day one because they mentioned. I remember my mother actually saying, "Look, we have a history in the family of adoption. Not necessarily the way you are doing it, but we have a history of it anyway. So it's nothing new to us, and we will support whatever decision you take." And then she gave so many examples of people we live with, we grew up with, and only at this stage did she feel it was correct for her to start telling me that no, that person was actually
All
not a
right.
relative, but
Okay.
it just opened up our home to them. So yeah, so they were quite okay with it. They've given the support, and it was good. It was good.
And now, friends, Rita and Waddi. So you guys had not had children of your own,
Yeah.
and first course of action or your first child is via adoption. I am sure that there was a lot of stories that went around. How did you deal with that, and what are some of the things that you had to personally deal with as a couple choosing to adopt your first child?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Interesting.
sure those many tongues are wagging.
So here we were suddenly showing up with a baby, like a whole big baby. And people had a lot of questions and theories and found it quite fascinating. Our close friends found it amazing. They were just so supportive. We had friends that would come and spend time with this child, buying him clothes, just spoiling him, and just being so supportive and being fascinated by this thing and asking more questions. This is for our close circle. And then other people who we would still talk to would ask, so, okay, so how did you come about this? What was the reason? And I had to be okay with some assuming that I was barren. And, even though when you think about it, it had just been a few months and you wonder, okay, so when had you, but people assume that because that's a narrative that's there, that adoption is only a last resort when
Yeah.
you cannot have your own kids, go and adopt. So some people thought that and they asked me. Some obviously just assumed, you get the looks and stuff like that. Some would even ask me, so are you okay with just looking after this child that Waddi just brought into the home, like from some years? And you're thinking, why would you think that? And so you know what? There's a lot of statements that come about that you just have to be okay with at the end of the day. So we dealt with it gracefully because we never ever felt we needed to prove a point in the first place. And because it was an agreement, we agreed, because it was an act of love, just like when you fall in love with someone, if someone wants to come and throw shade, you're not even you don't care really. You're not gonna explain yourself. It's actually like, oh, okay, even though, because deep down what you're feeling. It was the same with this, where we knew the love we had for this child. So we weren't always under pressure to explain us. But we did communicate. So it wasn't like an arrogant, like, hey, we've got a kid, be nice type thing. No, it was, we communicated well and we're graceful to those that didn't understand because, as you mentioned earlier, in our culture, it's not something that people understand. And because you then also get people coming to say, so what's the story? And they want to know as a school.
Yes.
When some actually feel like they've pieced, two together, then it's like, well done, you guys good, like to them, like, and it's like,
Like well done for your good deed of the century.
exactly. And then it's like, oh no, but we don't actually, it's not actually a well done kind of thing. It actually, that well done statement makes us cringe. It's like, I wish you had said that. Then where we do correct, we then say, no, we got the blessing. Remember, we got the child.
Yes.
And then we'll then let them realize that, actually this child came and filled something in our lives we didn't even know we needed.
Yeah.
So actually, we are the ones here, because some people then look at it as, you're saving the world, or like you've done the child a favor kind of thing. So we dealt with it as gracefully as we could. And of course, as firmly as we could. Like for me personally, I've been to places where when you go to clinics and people are talking and stuff like that, you have to be firm because some people are just nosy. So and then some people are just mean. So you read the situation. If this person is asking from a place of not with the right heart, then of course I'm not going to engage, but I'm not going to be rude. I'll just firmly cut it off. We're not going to go further in that. But if it's someone who's interested and wants to actually hear more about it, then anytime. So,
Right.
yeah. So there's no, like, I wouldn't leave the house saying, this is how I'm going to respond. It's just, it would, as it comes.
But the wisdom to just kind of be able to discern
Yes.
how to respond to each situation as it came
Yes.
and as it comes. So you've gone on to since have more children because you have 4 children now. How has that process been with your firstborn and the other 3? How have you assimilated them, and how are they getting along?
Okay, so after this first one, we then had 2 biological kids, a girl and a boy. And because they found him there, it was much easier for them to respect the setup of adoption. And so we haven't really had to work hard to try and get them to respect and to love the setup. And so because of that,
brother.
yes, it's their brother. And they grew up into the adoption setup. So the word adoption is not new in this home. They've already known that there are many ways to make up a family. So this would mean that our son knows that he's adopted. They know he's adopted. And so far what we've learned is that kids just follow the program. So if you haven't taught them that this is shady, if you haven't taught them how to hate or how to look at the adopted child in a weird way, they'll follow the program. And we've cultivated that one of love, where we've just said, adoption is this is your brother, this is love, we walk in love, and many ways to set up a family. So in terms of cultivating their relationship, that's what we've done, where we've just cultivated that. So we feel like if you then adopt, it's on you. You have to cultivate what kind of relationships they have. And if there's anything foreign that comes, you better just find out, okay, where did you hear that? Just like in the Bible, where God was like, where did you hear that? It's foreign. He said that. So we've had to work hard to protect our kids from, what we may feel like, okay, this is weird environment. So boundaries and stuff like that. That we've actively put in place to cultivate a relationship between them. And then in terms of us, people say you're gonna love your biological kids way more than this adopted one and stuff like that. To be honest, no. Even the 2 biological ones, you love them differently. There's no such thing as, you love this one more and stuff like that. You just love your kid. There's enough love for each child.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen as a mother. The argument that will be there is the connection where, because this one came out of me and this one didn't, at the end of the day, it's a heart thing. And I always then say, how many women fail to love their child and get, because of the depression after childbirth, and they don't actually want to connect. So this is why I say it's a heart thing. It's not so much of a birth thing. So you decide, I'm going to connect with this child. That's what has made it easy for me to love my kids the way that I love them.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. And I just think that's so, wow, that's so deep. Like, that's such a deep truth that it's a love thing. It's not a birth canal, or because it's to do with the heart. Because even if you're carrying, you create that connection with the child through conversation, so it's again love that is just outpouring in that way. Wow. So you mentioned, and I was going to ask this, that your son knows he is adopted. So you took him when he was 1. You've been married for 8 years. We're going to assume he's around 8 now. When did you choose to let him know that he was adopted, and what was his response?
Okay, so it wasn't something that we just dropped on him on one day and then we left it like that. So we, having learned this, so one of the things we did when we took in this child, we plugged into adoption support groups, and we learned from as many people that we could that have already walked this journey, because it was foreign to us. We didn't know the first thing about adoption. So we learned this from an adoption group. There's one lady who said to us, you shouldn't, when you then tell your child, don't make a big deal about it. So first of all, the child should know. So in our culture, the few that have adopted have hidden this secret because of fear of the response, fear of rejection, and because they want to, some of them actually want to hide from their own relatives. There's many reasons, which are valid when you think about it. But the truth is that you actually are not doing good to the child when you hide this and if you treat it like a big secret about their adoption, because it's part of their identity, and so they should know their identity. You know, you might shield them from the circumstances that led to this, and that's something that you can gradually share. But as far as the truth about their identity goes, the honest truth is that they must know who they are. They must know that they are adopted. And I feel like when sometimes people conceal this, it's probably because or when they get backlash from this, it's probably because they concealed it and they created a mess, you know, which you can avoid. You can avoid if you just take them along this journey. Because when we say it's an act of love, what we're also saying is it's something that they should celebrate. It's part of their testimony. So in the adoption world, there's something called a gotcha day. It's a day that's celebrated every year. The specific day that the adoption papers came through. So it's like a second birthday, where now you're saying as a family, we're celebrating the day that you came into this family. So there's a lot of things that you can do to make this normal, to make this child be ashamed of this thing. Because when you make it a secret, it almost like creates some shame. But when you share it and when you let them know that this is their story, they own it. And, you know, and then nobody can use it against them. Nobody can show up tomorrow. Because, you know, relatives always know these things. Right now, we've got relatives that know. When this child is not there, how do you know that no one is going to go and say, Futi, you know, this is the story. And then this messes up this child's life. Something that could have been avoided if you had told this child, because it's said that it's better if the child hears it from the mother because of
Yes.
because the mother is the one that carries. So when we told our son, we told him when he was 5 years old, and it was in a normal setup in the kitchen because it's something that we normally do together, cooking. And we just said to him, there's something that we need you to know, something special that we want to share with you. And because adoption is something we always talk about in the home, we've got books that we've read to the child, bedtime stories that talk about adoption. There's movies you can find where you always talk about adoption so that the child knows what it is in the first place. And so I said to him, I'll just sum it up, you know, and I'm the one who spoke. And I said to him, so just wanted to let you know that you are special. You're a gift that God gave us, specifically to us. And there was another mom, there was a first mom who carried you in her tummy. So because I'd had the two biological kids, we had seen the process of what it's like when a woman is pregnant and then the child is born. So it was easier for me to reference that. And said to him, so you know how I was pregnant with, you know, and then he says, yes, so there was a first mom who was pregnant with you. And for some reason, which we don't know, she felt that she wanted something different for you. And because she wanted something different for you, it works out that you then came into our family. And so this is something that she wanted for you. And so just, you know, you are different only because you didn't come out of my stomach, but you are special because you're my mom. So you are adopted. It doesn't make any difference. You're still the first child of the family. We love you, and he sealed that with all the affirmation, and then kept it brief, and then asked him, so how do you feel about it? And then he says, I'm happy, and then he gives me a hug.
Oh.
No, and then we looked at each other like, oh, okay. It was
Oh.
Holy Spirit. That wasn't
That's
God as we thought.
moment.
We just,
Wow.
yeah, you know what I mean? And now it's out there. Now nobody can say anything to damage this child. No one can throw anything at him. And so from time to time we check in. He also checks in. So how are you doing, buddy? You know, after what we said, you know, and here and there the questions come and we answer accordingly. And it has to be age appropriate because children can comprehend things differently and we don't have to load everything. So it has to be done gradually, prayerfully, and with love, and timing is best. So some kids, maybe earlier, you can tell them. So we can't say do it at 5. It depends on your child. It depends on your relationship. Yeah, it's very contextual. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think his response just like it just melts your heart, really. I mean,
Yeah.
you must have been carrying your heart like in your hands as you're going through this, and even his response, absolutely beautiful. Oh. So, when we were having the conversation, I think one of the things you mentioned is, of course, we know now that we've got our First Lady, and she has spoken quite a lot, and she's really encouraging for people to adopt. And like in this article that I read, that we have more and more Zimbabwean couples who are actually looking at adoption as a way into parenthood. You mentioned that while there's a call that is coming from government and to really try and normalize the culture of adoption, you feel that the institutions, like just society, is not ready. Can you just maybe expound on that a little bit for us?
All
Like
right.
what you.
Yeah, sure. I think just to mention that it's one thing to advocate for a culture of adoption. It's a whole different thing to actually implement it. And what we've come to learn and from our experience is that somehow the system still maintains a stigma on these children. It still maintains, it still hangs some sort of a reminder on these children. Some of the simple examples is they will not get the normal birth certificate like any normal child. Some of their birth records or some of their birth cards or those hospital cards will be written unknown, unknown. So there's all these little things that quite subtle, but they just maintain this reminder over the life of this child. So the systems in place are not, I would boldly say the systems are not ready for a full-on adoption culture. Simple things like medical aid, if you go through an affidavit process, even if as long as the child does not carry the same name as yours, it's going to be a mammoth task to get them on your benefits. You actually then have to foot the bill yourself and just pay directly. So you always have this situation, which is why it's important, as Rita mentioned, that this child needs to know where they are coming from and their circumstance, because one way or the other, they are going to encounter this system that reminds them that, for example, this system that will remind my son that he's not a Sansole by birth. He's he's part of a process and he's part of a system. So I think the institutions also need to kind of reform and a total shift in the culture if they really want to push for the whole adoption issue. And yeah, as much as the First Lady may sing about it, speak about it on public platforms, at the same time, she also has to put pressure on the institutions to reform. The institutions also need to be able to be prepared for for these changes that will come with adoption, to be prepared to accept that when I've adopted, fully adopted my son, he is mine
It's mine.
completely. I do not share any responsibility with the state. I do not share any responsibility with any institution. I'm taking on the full responsibility of making sure that this child grows up in a good environment, gets the best opportunities in life, and this child does not need a constant reminder about their circumstance and where they were found or how they came to be with us as a family. And because these things, these systemic things, they are like punctuations in the child's life. So know that when the child gets to 18, when they want to get their ID, they are going to experience this. When they get to a certain stage, when they want a passport, they are going to experience this. When they get to a certain stage and they want to enroll in a specific school locally, they are going to experience all these things. So it's important for us to be cognizant of the fact that our institutions have to also be ready to support, if we really want the full benefit of what an adoption culture brings to a society. We need to have those institutions coming along with us. In the same way that we take our families along, the institutions have to come along with us. They have to support us. They have to I guess they have to create a conducive environment. I don't want to discredit the role that the state is playing. I'm one of the guys who's always giving a thumbs up to to the current system our country has when it comes to protection, I think it's probably one of the best.
Right.
And it really does protect the children. But at the same time, in protecting these children, it can also sometimes present certain, I guess, certain barriers that will slow down the process and that can discourage any potential or would be adoptive parents. So we need a balance. We have to find
Absolutely.
halfway. And with those who have the interest in going through the process of adoption and with the state in itself, we have to meet halfway and make this process as seamless as possible, but still maintaining the level of protection and respect of the children, because it's all in the, I mean, as the law says, all in the interest of the child. And that's the position we should all just take, that all these things are in the interest of the child.
Absolutely, 100%. And so well said. I think institutions have to come along, but I guess it's a process. I mean, institutions are, big, slow things. They just move very, very slowly. But with wonderful work that you guys are doing in advocating and speaking out about this, I think the journey is well and truly started, and it is a process. And I think as we speak about it and we normalize that, our institutions will eventually catch up, and as we foster this culture of adoption. I want us to just start winding down now, you guys. Just a couple of things. What resources do you recommend to couples who are in similar situations, or they just want to find out about this process? What's your counsel to them?
There's quite a number good ones that we recommend. There's a project called the Michael Project. It's under River of Life. That's a very good one that people should check out. There's also Kukosha. If you know Sue Austin, she's very, very, very helpful. Really help throughout, even giving you forms, what you fill in, because it's much easier when you go through one of these organizations than if you just go straight to social welfare. It's much easier to go with someone who knows what to do, who can guide you through all of this and support you throughout. And then there's also Moses Basket, where we started off. Those are the three that we will recommend right now. Zim Without Orphans as well. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And what advice would you give to someone in a similar circumstance? There's fostering and then the process. So maybe three things that you've learned from your journey that you would just counsel people?
My three things would be, you need to, if you're a person of faith, you need to really be a person of faith. If you say you believe in the Lord, then you really have to stand by that, because the biggest fear in our culture, why many people don't want to adopt, and what many people asked us, was that one of the spiritual background of the child, because of things like ngozi, things like, what is that, spirits and stuff that follow the kids. Those are fears that people have, and they say we don't want to bring that into our family and then get a crossfire here and stuff like that. So I would say the first thing is, if you are a person of faith, you have to really stand firm in your faith, because I don't believe you can be double-minded. I think if you really say you are strong in the Lord, then this child will come under your covering. So there's no way that their stuff will come and affect you, because then your covering is what should take care of all of this. Not to say we should disregard all of this. I am aware of all of that. But if you are in your faith, you will know what to do. You follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, plead the blood of Jesus, do your dedications and everything that you know you need to do. The second thing I would say is find a good support system. You cannot do it on your own. You don't have everything. You need to equip yourselves. You need to learn, because as they grow, there's the stuff that we learned when he was 1 doesn't apply now. It's totally irrelevant now. So you have to constantly keep up. And in your support system, even when circumstances around your life change, you have people around you. So for example, so there's another type of adoption called kinship adoption, where you adopt a relative. So we are also, we've also done that, where I lost my brother, and he had a daughter. She had also her mom, And so we've taken her, and that's also another form of adoption. Usually people want to just pass around a child when you know, have a child in that situation. I'll pass that to my sister and then the brother, and then, you know, like, but no one is really taking full ownership of this child. So what we've done is taken that child. There's kinship adoption where you take in that child and you're responsible for everything around that child. So when things like this happen, for us, we would say it helped that we had adopted in the first place. So it was smooth for us, and we had a support system.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just, you know, blind. It wasn't just, you know, no drowning in anything. So whatever comes at you, because things like kinship adoption will come with drama, because this child is yours, but this child has relatives, extended family that are not your relatives, that will come and create drama around this child for whatever reason. But unfortunately now it's something that it's your problem that you're going to have to deal with, and you cannot do that on your own. That's something that you need a good support system when you do that. And then the third thing I would say is just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey.
Days after, you know.
Enjoy the journey. When you decide to do it, you know, after you faced your fears, when you have the support system, now you're going through life, even when days are good, even when they're not. Just enjoy the journey, because that's your life, that's your journey. Go through it and make the most out of it. Create good memories and be the best pillar that you can. And if you feel moved to do it, then please do it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people just stop at fears and then they leave it at that. So if you do feel moved, that's your sign. If you're watching this, that's your sign. If you feel a stirring, go for it. That's your sign. And sometimes it might not be you actually taking in a child. Just check out, maybe you actually need to support an adoptive family. Maybe you need to visit some kids in home. Maybe you need to go to these institutions we were talking about. Do what you can, offer your expertise and stuff like that. But don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Those are the
Right.
yeah.
What did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, for me it's well, they're not really three, it's just two that I live by. The first one is, the moment you feel you're doing this child a favor, don't do it.
Wow, that is deep.
Don't, because that is just a messianic complex that will just create more problems than solutions. So walk away from it. You can support from a distance, which is fine. It means you don't need to take in a child. Then the second thing is just the support system. You need it. You need it. And when you have it, there are times when you literally just have to lean on it, and you cannot figure these things out on your own. You're going to have to keep certain numbers on speed dial. Sometimes it can be a bit costly to get some of the legal counsel and stuff, but you need that support system. It will really save you from a lot of challenges and future problems. Yeah, I repeat, if you feel you're doing this child a favor, don't do it. It's unfair.
That is like such truth, like deep, like preach, you know, and just so practical, because it's not about you, hey? It's about the child. Wow. Rita and Waddi, you guys have been phenomenal. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being so authentic and sharing your journey with our audience. I've certainly learned so much. There's very many ways to assist. If you feel an urge, start to find out. And like what he's saying, there's various ways that you can get involved. But if the minute you think that it's all, you know, brownie points and I'm doing this child a favor, just stop and really caution yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, for your time. It's been absolutely incredible. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. If you've got any questions, please do DM, please do write, engage with us. We'd love to assist you. We'll point you in the right direction. Otherwise, have a fantastic holiday. Enjoy time with your loved ones, and whatever you do, be safe.